Or like I'm getting breakfast there. He's like, you should be getting, you should be eating a bar from the business. You're spending money on breakfast and doing this. Let's take a look at your bank statements.
Uh,
So we had a meeting and a sit down where, we looked through my bank statements to see where I was at. And I did ask him to do that because they kind of framed things in a way like, you should be asking us to like look through your finances to help you be better.
Hey, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Crystal, and if you're new here, this is my channel where I talk about my experience while I was in Amway through an organization called LTD. And I started out just trying to share my experience to discourage people from joining it and going through the things that I went through. And along the way, I've met some people who have gone through the same thing and have been sharing our stories ever since. Before we get into the video, I wanted to say thank you so much to all of my subscribers. I looked up and I had over 1,000 subscribers. So I want to say thank you so much for subscribing, for watching, for commenting. I see all of them, I read all of them, and I really appreciate you guys watching it, sharing it, and even sharing your own experiences in the comments. Today I get to speak to Jaeson, who was in LTD as well, and he was in it pre-COVID. So while I was in it when it was COVID, he got a chance to experience it before COVID, and it has some very interesting things to share about him, his friends, what he experienced, and kind of his awakening moment when he left LTD and decided to part ways. So go ahead, watch the video, enjoy, and I'll come back afterwards, of course, for some closing thoughts. Well, hello, Jaeson.
Hello.
Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for reaching out and sharing your story with me. And it's great to just kind of talk to you, hear your story, hear how you got through your journey, and just get to know a little more about you. So tell us about yourself, introduce yourself.
Well, like you said, I'm Jason. I'm 26 now. Got in the business when I was about 18 years old, turning 19. Um, I live in Delaware now, joined the Delaware team back then, working in finance now. So that's where I'm at as of today.
Oh, wow. So you were in Delaware. So tell us about what was going on in your life when you actually got introduced to LTD and the team and all of that.
So I had actually just dropped out of college. Um, it was like first semester, it was December 5th. I'll never forget. I told my dad, like, I'm dropping out of school. Is it for me? I need to figure something out. Like, I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur. I need to do something different. So I quit school, ended up working on a campaign for someone who was running locally in Delaware. And while going on that campaign, he said, hey, like, I know this one guy who works at this company. You should try and apply there. I applied there, got an interview that week, and started at the job. So it's around Christmas time. There's a holiday party. At the holiday party, it's like first couple weeks at the job. So you're just like walking around. I ended up meeting this guy. And he's like maybe 4 or 5 years older than me, a little more mature. And we're just talking, getting to know each other. And through the conversation, he's just like, like, yeah, I don't really see myself being here past the next 2 years. I have a plan that's, going to set me up so I don't have to work anymore. And I'm 18. I'm like, what? Like, what is that? I need to know exactly what you're doing. I want that. So that's kind of how that conversation started. So I'm like pinging him at work, like, hey, like, you want to do lunch today? Like, you want to do this? So eager, so excited. And then from then I went through like a month and a half, almost maybe 2 months, like selection process in order to get in.
Oh, so your process sounds a little bit longer than the one I went through. I think for me, well, no, maybe it was 2 months altogether. Now I think about it. Yeah, that probably does line up. But I think it's interesting how they always get us the same way, like talking about retiring early. You're just like, yes, I want that because we all have dreams and goals that we are trying to get into. So that kind of
Mm-hmm.
sucked you right in, huh?
Literally, especially being younger, like 18, you don't know anything. You don't even know who you are yet. So anything you see, you're just like, I'm gonna hop on it. And that's exactly what I did.
Wow. So based on what he told you, what were your expectations going in?
My expectations were, and our upline back then were in the Midwest. So he kind of framed it as he's often going out to the Midwest to work with them. So I'm thinking, is it like agricultural? Is it like
Mhm.
something with, something that I'm not aware of? So my understanding was these people on the Midwest have some type of business, some type of investments in something, and you're like helping, push that forward. So I was like, okay, like Let's figure that out.
So tell me about the first meeting that you went to. I guess after the process, talk a little bit more about how the process was for you. Was it
Hmm.
annoying? Was it kind of like, what are you guys doing? Like, were you really curious? Tell me about how you felt when you were going through the process.
To be honest, I think at that time and at that age, I was so naive that I was only curious. I wasn't really annoyed throughout the process. Like I was probably the perfect person that you wanted because like every little Easter egg, it just felt like I'm getting to the next thing. So the first meeting was at work. We just sat down and he asked me a little bit about, who I am to get to know me more and gave me that book. I kind of forget, Business of the 21st Century, I think it's
Uh-huh.
called.
Yeah.
Yep. So he gave me that book to read. I'm telling my dad, like, listen, man, I'm reading this book. Like, my life's going to change. I'm going to go back to this guy and talk to them. And maybe he can talk to his mentors and maybe I get to meet them. So that was the first meeting. Then we had a second meeting to talk about the book. And then we had a second one where he kind of explained how the business worked, but it was still kind of vague. And then from there is when I met his upline, which are, I guess, the upline in the Delaware area for that team.
So during the process, did you ever get invited to a meeting, like one of the training meetings and one of the prospect meetings?
Yes. So after I met with the upline in Delaware, then they invited me out to the info session meeting.
So tell us all about the info session. What was the atmosphere? How did you feel? Let us in.
So I walked in there. I'm like, I've never seen this many like happy people. Like, wow, like these are great people. There's not a straight face in the room. Everyone's smiling. Everybody's so happy, shaking your hand, and everybody's dressed in like this crazy professional business attire. And I'm like just getting into like my professional career. So like I'm just trying to find that fitting. I'm like, wow, these people like have it together. They have all their stuff together. And just kind of meeting and getting introduced by people and to kind of paint the picture, they were all black people, like where I was at for the most part. There was a mix, but I'm seeing people who look exactly like me, who are like a couple years older than me, who are doing this business thing. It's like, whoa, like I need to be in this room again. Whatever you guys are doing, whatever's going on, I have to be there. They showed the plan, and towards the end of it is when I kind of understood more of exactly what it was. That it was through Amway, and MLM. And they explained about LTD as well.
Oh, they did. Okay, so they did get into Amway.
At the
Mm,
info session. Yep.
yeah. I love how excited you were that you were just like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like you see all these successful Black people, you're just like, yes, I'm gonna be a part of all that.
Hmm.
I think for me, like I was annoyed, but I was also still like, really intrigued because I just wanted to have passive income, thinking that that was going to come from there. And it was the same thing when I walked in. Everybody was just like, "Hey, hey, hey!" And it was like nobody was upset. Everybody was just excited to be there, and that
Hmm.
really is a red flag. Like thinking back, it's almost like are y'all all like being like under a spell or something? Because no one's ever
No,
always,
seriously.
yeah. Yeah, no
Yeah,
one's ever always that excited. So, um, looking back, thinking back, it was like that was weird. That's not normal.
it's still not normal, but I'm here. I am thinking like, I've never seen anything like this before. So like, this is what successful people are like and what they do. So let's go through it. And I think you said you were a little bit older when you first got in, so your, I guess, perspective is definitely a little different.
Yeah, that's why I'm interested because you were 18 and I was in my early 30s. So I was just like coming in, working in corporate already and kind of knowing the game of corporate, just seeing stuff. But you were kind of like fresh eyes, like, this is great. And I know now why they kind of encourage us to talk to younger people because the fact that there's an
Hmm.
experience there. So the gullibility and just, is that a word, gullibility? Like just the fact that, you're just excited and you're like, yeah, this sounds great. That's kind of why they encourage us to talk to younger people.
Yeah, and the way that they framed it to us when I was kind of deeper and through the process and signed on was, younger people, they're not clouded with, bad judgment. They haven't gone through life and experienced these traumas. So, they're more open to do what is supposed to happen. And, this is the window, that you want to kind of get them at.
Oh my God, crazy talk. Okay, so did you ever try to get anyone into the business? If so, tell us how it went. Did you sponsor anybody? How did that go for you?
So I did. I ended up sponsoring two of like my best friends. Um, The first one I sponsored, he was kind of around when he could and when he wanted to. He came to conferences, never did a ditto, like ever did a ditto. He would go and buy the things that he wanted to buy. And for those who don't know what a ditto is, it's like an ongoing subscription to like buy products on the first of the month. Um, so I got him in, and he was around for a while, and then I got another person in, and he was in consistently, kind of really doing all the things for about maybe 6 months
Hmm.
until he ended up leaving. Um, yeah.
So, was there any kind of strain on those relationships since you knew them before? Did the relationships grow? Did they kind of fade off? How'd that work?
I would say they definitely just grew. It kind of that didn't create any strain on our relationships. It kind of got us to know each other more, and felt like we were a part of this, great thing together, going to change the world. And even when they both decided to transition out, there was never any like ill will or ill intent. It didn't really harm the friendship at all.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody had left a comment under one of my videos and they were like talking about how great their experience was with the people. And I mean I agree like my sponsor, is great. We still talk to this day. Some of my uplines were great. The relationship building part of it was probably one of the most favorable parts of it. But you knew them before. Many of those people that I met in the business, I don't talk to anymore. They didn't keep up with me when I left, and really,
Hmm.
like I think I said before, they don't have time to keep up with you because you have to constantly be sponsoring people and constantly be networking to get anybody in the business. How often were you networking to try to recruit prospects?
Um, it was kind of different seasons. The seasons that I was like in the beginning through mid, like every single day. Like I know you're familiar with the app that we pay what $90 a month.
Yep.
I was communicating with my mentor on there every day. Like I'm going to these places and talking to them. Like I would stop at gas stations, going to the stores, reach out to people. So it was honestly like a daily thing for me. I wanted to make sure I was communicating. I was doing all these things so I could hit those marks to be where I wanted to be or where I thought it would get me.
Yeah. So on average, how much time did you think you spent networking, going to meetings, doing all those things that was being on the app, reading the books, listening to the audios? How much time a week do you think you spent doing that?
Probably like 10 to 15 hours, honestly.
Hmm.
10 to 15 hours on a weekly basis.
Hmm. And I think that's what they said. Like it only will take, an extra 10 hours a week to do the business. But I felt like for me it was more because once you actually got people into the pipeline and into the process, the Q1 and Q2, all that stuff, it took up a lot of your time for me.
Hmm.
And at one point I felt like I was on fire. Like I was having people in the process, I was having meetings every night, having QIs and QI1s and QI2s every night. And it was a lot of time that I felt like, okay, for me to only get back $1 back
Yeah, no,
on
if
a
that.
check. If that, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would leave work at 5. I wouldn't go home until maybe what, like 8 o'clock. I'd leave work at 5 and just go to a bunch of places on the way home and then go home. I'd listen to audio while I was at work. That was kind of like my daily routine. If I'm out between about 5 and 8 o'clock, I'm putting that time into network on a daily basis.
Mhm. So we touched on money. How much money do you think you made? Like, weren't those checks like just funny? Like, I think my first check, I don't even remember how much. It wasn't much. It was like $9, something like that. And I was just like,
Hmm.
okay.
I think the most I ever got was maybe $40, maybe $40. And that was when I had two downline where one who consistently had a ditto and the other one placed orders around the same time. And I probably had some customer orders too because you get like $4 or $5 off of that.
Yeah, yeah, same. I just wish that there was more, like this was my whole issue. I just wish there was more transparency with how money's actually made. Because through
Hmm.
Amway, you can make a couple of bucks, but you're not making enough money to like, really walk away from your job. It's just not the truth.
And
So,
the LTD subscription, when you're reach a platinum level, I mean, that's when you also get to make that income. And that's where I think a good amount of, that safety net for those leaders within LTD are making a good amount of money.
Wow. I wonder how much you're actually making. I know I talked to some people before, but like, I wonder how
Hmm.
much you're actually netting, you know what I mean, a month. Because with the app, you're paying 90 a month, and then that was just the basic level. They had a level that was like premium, that was I think 120 a month.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I just wonder like how much profit are you making actually after paying all that stuff and whatnot.
Hmm.
So talk about when you actually felt like this business wasn't for you. You were like, you know what? Something ain't right.
Um, I grew up very Christian. I grew up in a very Christian household, always going to church. And I think that's a big piece of what got me into the business and staying around, because of what they talked about, their values, and at least my team specifically, they made it seem more about this is like uh, I guess a belief system more than it is a business. The business is like secondary. That's what's a lot of what was preached. So very heavily, I mean, very huge in those like ideals. So as time went on and we're here, I'm noticing things that maybe my upline would say that I'm like, okay, but that doesn't really make sense. And I've always had those moments of thinking that, but I was like, okay, it doesn't make sense because I don't understand it yet. I'm too young. I don't really understand. They know what they're talking about. But as time progressed, I'm like, okay, certain things just aren't adding up to me. But when this upline says this, I don't believe it. But everybody else is like, yeah, 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 yeah. Or we're at a conference and a certain speaker is there and everybody's rushing to them like they're a celebrity. And it's like, okay, that's kind of odd to me. Why are we doing that? And but we all think it's okay. And everybody else around me is like acting as if this is normal. Now, I was also in a church at that time as well as a praise and worship leader. And being there, I was kind of like noticing things as well that, like, okay, my pastor would say something that I don't necessarily agree with, or a person in power would say something I don't agree with. And like everyone is just like, yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is very odd. And I'm realizing like how much of these people are thinking for themselves. And then I look back at my own stuff. I'm like, am I thinking for my own self? So whole big like change in brain chemistry for me. Um, and I had decided like, okay, maybe I need to take a step back because I don't think I know how to think for myself, and I don't even really know what I believe.
I think that's so brilliant because how old were you when were you 19 or
I
20?
was 20 at that time, about to turn 21, maybe 2 or 3 months before turning 21.
Wow. I wonder if you just kind of growing and aging made you think that because I think that's something great to be like, why are they not thinking for themselves? Like, why is everybody like acting like a robot, basically?
Mm-hmm.
And I think no, and then the parallel between what was happening in LTD and your church. That is so interesting because I had a conversation with my husband. I was like, I feel like the church is like sometimes like how LTD was. Everybody just went along with whatever the leader said without even thinking about whether it was accurate or not, whether it was biblically sound or not. It was just like, well, the pastor said it, so it must be true.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
scary.
It's very scary. And I'm seeing people, and it was like so many thoughts going in my head. I'm seeing someone who's 50 and they're sitting in this church pew, and their whole life is just comprised on, really what this man is telling them to do. And like they have no like, agency to do their own thing. And I'm just seeing my life end up being 50 years old, sitting in a seat, constantly just making my decisions based off one person or two people who have this ideology that I just decided to subscribe to as if it's, Bible, and it's not. And that was like a very scary reality in that moment. I'm glad I realized it and went through it. But after realizing that, I spoke to my upline and I asked, like, hey, I think we're gonna, take a little step back. And he like was very strongly encouraging against it. Just sit in the chair, let God speak to you. And so it started to be that like same Christian doctrine that he's trying to say, like, let God speak to you while you're in the chair. If you're not here, you're kind of out of alignment. You're going in the darkness, and like all these different things to kind of try to pull me in. And I honestly just didn't respond to him. And I didn't show up one day, and I'm getting a text from him. I'm getting a text from my direct sponsor, which was also a key contributor to me leaving because I think we had a very unhealthy relationship.
Hmm.
Um, I think I held him in too high regard, as far as like my decisions, the things that I did. I got reprimanded from him a lot, and it like was kind of harming my self image at the time, which was also a big key factor in me stepping away as well.
So talk a little bit about more about that. You said you held him in a high regard, and he reprimanded you for what?
I at the time I felt like he was an older brother to me. As I said when we met at work, he's about 4 or 5 years older than me. So we kind of developed that brother little brother relationship. But when it came to certain things, like I had a really good friend while I was in the business. We were like tight. She was a lady, but we were genuinely great friends. I go to her house and spend time with like her parents and everything like that. Like there was never anything going on between the two of us. And one day we went to lunch and she like came by the job and I had paid for her meal. And she would do the same for me. Like it was, how you are with your friends. I get it this time, you get it next time. He had heard about that instance and it was like a really big thing. That's gonna be someone's wife someday. You don't pay for her lunch, that sets the wrong idea and the wrong tone. And the way they would get about like certain things as far as like the optics and being around somebody and that's not your wife and this and that, it like kind of was very jarring to me. I'm like, this is my friend and now I'm in trouble because of this. So that's one instance. Or like I'm getting breakfast there, he's like, you should be eating a bar from the business. You're spending money on breakfast and doing this. Let's take a look at your bank statements.
Uh,
So we had a meeting and a sit down where, we looked through my bank statements to see where I was at. And I did ask him to do that because they kind of framed things in a way like you should be asking us to like look through your finances to help you be better. So I end up, asking, yeah, let's look at it. So he has a highlighter. We're sitting down. He's going through like, you could be buying this from the business, and also giving some sound financial advice as well. But looking back, it's like, what were we doing here? So that's kind of pieces of that unhealthy relationship where I was so set on making sure that I wasn't getting in trouble and angering him that
mm.
it kind of drive me to try and do more things in the business. So now my drive in the business is to make sure he's not angry, make sure I'm doing the right things because if he's angry, that means I'm not doing the right things, which means God is probably angry because this business is connected to God. So it was like this whole big cycle that I was like entrenched in.
That is deep. And I think that that's how a lot of believers get caught up in it and are in it for years because they feel like, well, this business is connected to God and God wants us to do this. And our upline is, someone that God put there. And it's just like none of that is actually true. None of that's actually, it's not reality. And basically, you're wanting to like please him, like, he was your God almost.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
That
For
is
sure. And
crazy.
that's not a healthy relationship to have with anyone. And like you said, backing that up with that religion piece, it's just like a terrible recipe for disaster, which
Mhm.
it was, which led to me having to step away.
I like that you highlighted the fact just how dangerous it is of the spiritual manipulation. I that was one of my biggest red flags is the spiritual manipulation and the church services from people who were not pastors, them raising up tithes, and I was just like how are y'all able to do any of these things? It really bothered me, and after talking to people and kind of how they felt about it. Some folks they met in church, some folks they got sponsored through people at church. So, like you said, it's all connected. It's all this whole thing, but you broke free and broke out of that. And you were just like, yeah,
Mhm.
this isn't normal. This isn't right, which is awesome. And I feel like I even had some uplines that said some things like, well, I had an upline that said she filters all her decisions through her business. And I was like, so your business is basically your God. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Everything has to go through it
Yeah. Which is, yeah, I mean, works for you, doesn't work for me at all.
at all. Um, so you said you left, you kind of just stopped, replying to them when they tried to get at you. Was anything else ever done, or was it just like they just eventually stopped harassing you?
Well, we did have a conversation like weeks after. I just let them know, like, hey, I'm I'm not well. Like I'm literally not well. I'm struggling with like what I believe, with who I am. how much of my identity is built rooted into this. I really need to take some time away. And so he tried to offer me this book to read, and like it just didn't really end well. I I ended up actually moving away to California. I lived in Delaware and moved to California. I Within a month after leaving the business, I was just thinking like, how far can I get away from these people? Some of them are at my church. A bunch of them work at my job because we were able to try and help, get others jobs there. So I'm seeing them every day. I'm gonna see them in the mall because all of them are out there networking. And it was so overwhelming that I just felt like I need to go as far as possible. Um, and there's kind of where I kind of built my own sound foundation of like, who am I? What do I believe? What's important to me? What are my values?
Wow, that's a leap. Like you, like let me just leave the state because it was that important to you. How long
Hmm.
did you stay in California?
So I was there for about maybe 10 or 11 months. I ended up coming back when COVID had happened. I was
Okay.
like, I'm either going to pay this rent or I'm going to get a flight home to where I can be with my mom and dad. And that's exactly what I did.
Oh, so when you came back, did you see anybody? Because did you go back to the same church and the same job, or how did that happen?
Uh, I definitely didn't go back to the same church when I had got back. Um, but I didn't go to the same job either. I ended up working from home and then working at Amazon and things like that when I had first came back.
Yeah. Good. I'm excited because you got to really kind of out of sight, out of mind, and kind of just kind of cleanse of all the nonsense. Which was is helpful because the only person that I saw after I left was my sponsor. And she was like, girl, do whatever you want. I don't really care because she left. She ended up leaving too. So it wasn't like she was still trying to get me back in or still trying to be like, girl, you're missing out. She was like, girl, I understand if you have to leave. Like, this is actually really crazy. So not seeing your uplines and stuff, I think helps. I've heard horror stories of people being harassed and chased down by their uplines and all this stuff. And I'm just like, you don't owe them anything. If anything, they owe you. They owe
Oh,
us.
no, seriously. And I have run into cross line and upline multiple times here. Um, with my direct upline, where I guess I had that unhealthy relationship with, I've seen him like ran into him like maybe 3 times since being back. Um, the very first time was a little jarring, a little shaky, a little PTSD. But after a couple of times of seeing them, I learned to kind of forgive and understand that like you don't even really know exactly what you're in. You're kind of just in this machine. I have another upline who left before me and has gone on to be very successful himself. And we had some really good conversations about like how he feels a little like the sense of grief for, getting some people in and, him feeling like their lives now are kind of not on his hands, but like he had a part in them maybe like not having their 20s. A lot of us got in when we were in our early 20s and time is passing, you're going into your 30s and it's just like, am I the reason why your life is altered forever on this path? Um, which was like a really sad kind of thing to think about. Because these are people that, like you said, you grow these great relationships with these people. These are people that you truly love, and you build these strong bonds. And being on the outside, you kind of see like, wow, like you've given your entire 20s away to the system that hasn't really repaid you yet. And are there positives that you get from it? Skills, opportunities, um, just I guess a bunch of things that you can gain from it. But you're not really able to go on certain vacations. You're not able to do certain things. You don't really see certain people, and a lot of the people that are in your life, you're trying to do this business, so you're spending so much time so that you can one day take care of them and provide and go on these trips. But you know, life isn't forever. We're not going to be on this planet forever, and this time is so precious. You're holding off having a kid until you're free. Like these are those things that they teach you in the business. It's like that's not reality, and it's really sad. Honestly, it's really sad.
That was a powerful statement that you just made. And a part of me was glad that the one girl that I sponsored left like the same weekend because you do feel like it's blood on your hands, basically, because someone's life is altered. People are holding off on living life because they feel like they're going to be free soon. So then I'll be able to live my life then. But you're right, life isn't forever and things are happening. People are dying left and right now, especially. And it's kind of unfortunate that that's happened. Did your downlines eventually leave as well?
Yes, so they actually both left before me. Um, One of them, he kind of sat me down And all day he was like, I have something to tell you, I have something to tell you. And I was just like so confused. We drove to different locations and he's like, I just can't do it. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, he ended up just saying like, yeah, I can't do the business anymore. And I just heard him out. And at the time, I had a lot of the similar feelings, but because I'm still in this business mode, I'm like, I can't tell him that I'm thinking the same things because you don't do that. That's like, you don't do that.
Hmm.
And so I just, let him kind of go ahead with it. He had a couple meetings and just left. My other um, downline, we kind of had a meeting with our upline, which to this day, like, still haunts me a little bit. He had two very tragic situations happen, as far as like a house burning down and family member passing away, all within the same week. We go and we sit down with our upline, let them know like, hey, this just isn't a good time. He's gonna have to step back for a little bit. And they were kind of like, winners find ways. And what are you gonna do with the situation? When you go diamond, is this a story that you want to tell? Your children one day, is that you persevere through this and you win diamond? What kind of person do you want to be? What else was recovered from the fire? PlayStation. Oh, you have this, you have that. Have you thought about selling that to do your ditto? Have you thought about selling that in order to, take care of certain things that you need to take care of? And that was so jarring, more so now in the moment. Part of me kind of felt like, well, they're kind of right. This is like going to be your story, but also underneath, I'm also thinking about like everything that my friend's going through and kind of like mourning that internally. So those were some red flags.
That's a huge red flag. Just to tell someone, winners find a way when they're grieving. That's just, and thinking back in the moment, you're just like, well, you're right. But thinking back, you're like, that is actually crazy. Why would you say that to somebody
It's
who's getting?
insane. It is insane.
If you could describe your time in the business with one word, what would that word be?
It's going to be a hyphenated word. I'd say life changing. Yeah, life changing. That's the only way I can think. Life altering.
All three. Both in a good or bad way, or like kind of both.
I would say both. It was maybe bad for that period of time. But now I have such a strong sense of like self. I don't even think I was really self-aware before that happened. I kind of just did whatever, and I never like really looked at myself much. I would also consider myself agnostic now. I was strongly Christian then, but I've like kind of decided to have my own belief system and kind of think a little more critically. When I enter situations, I'm like less naive. I really think more, and I don't allow people to like have more control of like my thoughts, my ideas, and my decisions. And had I not gone through that, I don't think I would be this like emotionally sound, emotionally aware.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like I think it changed the trajectory of my life in that aspect.
Wow.
Um, there were some, bad down moments where I'm like, what is going on? Who am I? But that ultimately brought me to who I am today. If I could go back in time, I would absolutely go through the same thing again, if I'm being honest.
That's great. I love to hear that because I felt the same way. There was some, like I said, I was a little older when I got in, but there were some parts that really helped me get better and help you get better. But it sounds like it really just helped you become who you are now, and which, is a good thing.
Hmm.
So, what advice do you have to anyone that wants to do this, that they're just like, I don't care what y'all say, I'm doing this is great. Do you have any advice to give them or anything to share with them? You want them to know?
The only advice I would give is to really know who you are and what you want out of life. There are some people who can go through that, that business model and it worked for them.
Mhm.
I will say it's very, very few, the fraction of those who are successful. I think it's like what point something percent
Mhm.
who like are profitable and making, 50K within a year. Really know who you are and if this model is something that you want to go through, but it does require levels of manipulation in order to be successful. It requires levels of manipulation, a lot of time. It's not going to be a little bit of time because when you have a team, it takes well over the 15 hours a week. Yeah, really know who you are, because you can go in and get lost and start adopting different ideals and mindsets that aren't based in reality, that aren't true, and it will change the course of your life. And you'll look back 10 years and wonder, like, why did I allow myself to get there? So yeah, really know who you are before doing anything, and really understand, does this business model get me where I want to go? Look past the relationships, look past what it feels like, look past the emotions of, what you feel when you're around these people. Just be very real and honest with yourself, um, and understand, is this something that I want to do? Me personally, I'm not comfortable with manipulating people in order to get somewhere. And no matter how you do the business, to be successful, it's going to take levels of manipulation for sure.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I didn't even think to really ask about that because it does take quite a bit of manipulation and just gaslighting and all that stuff to get people to conform to your will, basically. So thank you
Hmm.
for mentioning that.
And while I'm thinking about it, there was one thing that I had written in my notebook that I read, which was crazy. And it said, kill your dream so that you can help the greater team get to theirs, and then you can rebirth yours after you're free. Like, the fact that that was something I wrote down, I'm like, this is gas. This is a great little nugget. That is insane. So that's kind of what they're expecting you to do. Kill your current dreams now so you can help whoever your upline platinum is go far. And hopefully you'll do the same one day, which isn't that likely.
Isn't that Jason? Well, Jason, thank you so much for your time and just sharing your story. We really appreciate it. I know others are going to hear this and might rethink what they're doing or what they're, into. So thank you.
Agreed. Best of luck.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that interview and learned some things as well. If you've also experienced something similar, let us know in the comments. I love it when I read comments of people who have left, who are thinking about leaving, who are even saying that they're not leaving, they're staying forever. I love getting everybody's perspective on how they feel about Amway, LTD, and other MLMs as well. As per usual, I have the FTC link below. If you want to file a complaint with them, you are more than welcome to. I have, and I think if you feel led to, you should as well. Again, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, have a great day.